Docker Bench Security is a very useful tool to test the security in your Docker containers. So the main purpose of the bench security is to perform Docker check against a container and generate a report that tells you if your container is potentially insecure. So the Docker bench security mainly focuses on the best practices in areas like file permissions and registry settings. So the Docker bench security is basically a shell script that looks for common best practice patterns around implementing Docker containers in production. It is pretty much a set of bash scripts which must be run as a root user on any machine where Docker is installed. And so the tool will produce reports for every system that is checked while it is installed on that system. So from Docker host and Docker daemon point of view, this is the best tool you can use to check those best practices. So here I will bring you some components which this tool tests. So using the bench security, we will test the host configuration, the daemon Docker configuration, the configuration files of the daemon, the image container and the compilation files, the runtime container, and the Docker security options. So you can see how many things you can check just with this single tool. So to run the Docker bench security, you first need to go to Docker bench security repository. So to clone it, you can simply do git clone and then https github.com/docker/docker bench security.git. Okay, so run that and this will copy the whole repository. So now once you have it, if I do ls, you can see that we're having the Docker bench security right here. So you can do cd Docker bench security and then run the execute file, which is this one. So you can simply do sudo, or actually since I'm root user I don't need to do sudo. So you can do sh docker bench security sh, and you can see that this will run a complete diagnostics of all your systems. So what we just saw is how the Docker bench security executes a container with high privileges and runs a set of tests against all the containers in the Docker host. So here are some of the configuration checks that the Docker bench security is doing. And the first one is the host configuration. This section checks the security over the Docker host. Then we have the daemon Docker configuration files, and here in this section we'll see information about the configuration files used by the Docker daemon. This ranges from permissions to reports and properties. Sometimes those areas may contain information that you don't want others to know in a plain text format. The next one is the daemon Docker configuration. And here, this section shows the information about Docker daemon configuration and can detect containers that are running on the same Docker host and checking the areas for each other's network traffic. By default, all containers that can run on the same Docker host will have access to each other's network traffic. So if you go back to the terminal and we try to observe what we just got, you will see that right here you're having different sections that are specified with numbers, right? Those look like a section in a book. So the first section right here is the host configuration. And so wherever you have a warning, this should be reviewed at system configuration level. For example, here in the host configuration, we can take a look at ensuring a separate partition for containers that have been created to ensure that auditing has been made in the Docker daemon and also in files and directories. So you can see that here straight away you're getting some advices for what passes and what can get better in your system. So we can see that, for example, here we have many audits that are currently performed and they are passing, but also we have some warnings as well. Then if I scroll down at point 2, you'll see that here we're checking the Docker daemon configuration. So the Docker daemon configuration checks the file permissions related to the Docker daemon, such as the Docker service, the Docker socket, and so on. So it basically verifies that those 3 files can pretty much run only with root privileges. So you can see that here we're having a warning that we should ensure that network traffic is restricted between containers. We should note that the Docker is runnable right now as non-root user, which we actually verified by being signed to my personal account but not to root, so we know that this is true. Here we get some recommendations for namespace support and so on. And here below you can see section 3, which is the Docker daemon configuration files. So you can see here we're having almost actually everything passed, which is great. Actually everything is passed. Okay, and after that in section 4 we're checking the container images and build files. And you can see that for many containers we have no health check found. Okay, so this might be a good suggestion for improving those images right here. Here we will check things such as whether the Docker Content Trust is enabled on the Docker host or not, which was this parameter that we set up early on, if you remember, the Docker Content Trust, which is pretty much verifying the images on our devices. And then in section 5 we're checking the container runtime, and you can see here that there are no containers currently running. So if, for example, you run some of your containers, you get some additional suggestions here as well. So normally, if you want to execute the most significant warnings, for example, those ones here, and to solve them, we can execute the container limiting resources at memory CPU levels. We can also add read-only permissions or use non-root user for a particular container. So for example, if I run the Python container, you'll see that right here in the container runtime we'll have few changes because now we'll have container running. So let's try that. So let's do docker run -i -t ng inx, which is a type of container. Then let's do bin and bash. And here you know that nginx, we're going to create it as an interactive container, so you'll be able to type things inside. Let's hit enter. Okay, and you can see that we run this container and right now we're inside. I will open another terminal right here. Okay, and on the other tab I will simply write first of all sudo su, so I'm a root user. Okay, and then write docker container os. Okay, and you can see that we're right now having one Docker container that we're currently running, right? So let's now try to execute the bench security. So let's do os, let's go to Docker bench security, okay, and let's do sh docker bench security.sh, okay, let's run that. And if I move up here on 5, which is container runtime, you can see that now we're having plenty of options here, and this is because we're now running a container. So you can see all the recommendations, and some of them are really related to something that we studied already. So for example, here you can see that we have AppArmor already enabled. You can see the CEU Linux security option is not enabled there, so this is a warning. We also didn't start the container with security options anyways, so that's why we're getting another one, and so on and so on. You can see the different options and pretty much see what you can improve, or maybe you see options that are not enabled but you would like to keep them the same. So let's go to the other tab and write exit to stop this container. And here if I do docker container os, you can see that right now we're having nothing running. So in order to improve those privileges that are not added right here, you can add commands such as read only for the container. Also you can allocate specific CPU shares by CPU dash shares equal to, let's say, 500. You can also do bits limit equal to 1 when you create a container, and so on. You can also use the detach option. So actually adding those additional things would really help to reduce the number of warnings that you have. And the last, of course, is if you want to add security option, okay, you can add additional security options in order to improve the security of your container. So here is how you can really improve the runtime of the container in point 5. So another very good option to actually audit your system is with a tool called Linus. Okay, so this is an open source audit tool for evaluating every Linux or Unix based systems. So if I write Linus right here, you can see that I currently have it installed and I can check out all the commands that I can use. If you don't have it, of course, you can install it using the apt-get install option. So let's try to audit our system. So first I will run one container. Let's do the ng inx, so this will create a new container. And here in the other terminal, I will do linus command actually audit system. Okay, and you can see that now Linus in this first phase is starting to check our system. Okay, so now it executes and you see that in green you'll be able to see everything that is a positive about your system. So whether you have the right packages installed, the right ports running, and in red you would see things that your system might be missing and there is a warning there. You can see that it is actually quite long of execution when we run this tool. This is because it is really checking a lot of components of your Linux system. So you can see that the execution of our system is completed, and this will check all the configuration related to the boot, services, and the kernel. It checks also things related to the users, groups, authentication, and finally it will check information related to the shells, the file system, the containers, and the security frameworks. Right here you can see that we're having right now the upper mode enabled. Okay, but for example we don't have those two other frameworks, right? So this is how you can use the Linus to check the configuration of your Docker host, and I hope with this tool that you have now a good number of software that you can use in order to analyze whether your Docker application, and specifically your Docker host, is properly configured or not. So based on those analyses, so based on the bench security, whether you analyze it with the Docker bench security or with Linus, you can really see clearly what security options might be needed in order to improve your Docker image and container. So that's it. Thank you very much guys for watching this section, and in the next one we'll continue with the Docker image security. Thanks for watching.